So we're at lesson number 15 in the Guitar Essentials Level 1 for the evolving beginner. I assume that's you. And what we're doing is systematically, progressively building a foundation for those of you who have either skipped past building a foundation or are at the beginning and want to learn what this instrument is about. That includes reading and understanding the musical language, which is not tablature. All right. You can pick up this book on Amazon, either in hard copy or in Kindle form. Here we are at page 37, and we're talking about chords and chord diagrams. Here is an example of a chord diagram. It is like the first three frets of the fretboard. This dark line here is the nut. We all have one of those, and here's the names of the strings: E, A, D, G, B, E. This is the low string, string 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If you go to the local music store, if there are any left, and you ask for string 1, they will give you this skinny one, unless the person behind the counter plays piano. Then you'll have to check. So so you'll get the thin one here, which is the high E. It's called high E because it's the highest in pitch, number of vibrations per second. Okay, now let's put our fingers down on a chord. So here's my finger 1 and finger 2. I'm going to place them on fret 2, just as it's indicated here. I can strike each one of the notes. In this case, I have an open string. It tells me I can strike that. And then I have my first and second fingers, and then I can strike the rest of the strings as well, because the notes belong in the chord. Excuse me. These notes are E, B, E, G, B, E. As you can see, it's got 3 E's, E, E, and another E. And then a B and a B and a G. So actually, there are only 3 different notes here. So this E minor chord is a triad. It's called a triad, or a 3-note chord. All we're doing in open position chords is duplicating notes. Okay, let's move on. Here's our common C chord, the most common C chord. There's an X here down on the bottom, and that X tells us don't play that string, because in this case, that string is in the C chord, but it just doesn't sound good. The third in the lowest voice. The E is the third. So here we have our fingers 3, 2. Open string. That's a C chord, and we don't strike the bottom, and so we have to learn to strike the strings from the notes that belong in the chord. In this case, we strike the strings from string 5. I've over the years learned to mute the bottom string, and I just do that with my third finger, as you can see. If I roll my third finger, it starts to open up that string, right? All right. Now, here we have another 2 chords so that we can practice this chord chart. I'm going to just read what it says here about the chord chart. Guitarists often use chord charts when accompanying other musicians or vocalists. It may be the most common written method for quickly communicating the form and chords of a song. In many cases, guitar players are relegated to playing rhythm, right? And so that rhythm is very often communicated by writing a chord chart. So here we have a little chord chart, and we're going to read that chord chart and count through the chord chart. So now we have a G chord. And that is a G chord. Now, there are those of you out there that are going to say, no, you have to put your finger on top there. No, I don't, because the G chord is also a triad. It's only made up of the notes G, B, and D. So in this case, I have G, B, D, and another G and another B. So I've got more than enough notes to spell the G chord. And I'm not adding this one for reasons of a quick change. And so this is a legit, completely adequate G chord, and then changing to an E minor chord, and you'll notice that I'm just doing it with one finger change. So I've got a common finger, and we call a common or pivot finger, right? So this is an easy change. That's the point. And the trick here is not to strike the top string, right? Just don't strike the top string. Learn to chop out 5 strings, right? So now we're going to play this little chord chart here at number 80, 84. So let's take a look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice a bass line that's doing this. Got that movement down on the bottom, right? You should always listen for bass line movement. All right, and now we have another chord being introduced here, and this one's an A minor. And the reason we're going to an A minor is because we want this pivot finger, right? So we have E minor to A minor, pivoting around finger 2. I can't tell you how important this is. Really, like, oh man. I've had so many students, excuse me. As a matter of fact, it wasn't long ago that I had a student that came in. And he played a C chord like this, which he fingered correctly. And then he changed to an A minor and he did this. So what's wrong with that? And then changed back to C. He left every note every note on the fretboard, and removed his hand completely, and then replaced it with a picture of a chord that he had seen in a diagram, right? And that's why I'm doing this here. That's the most inefficient and unmusical way that you can play chords, because in the case of the C going to an A minor, you have one finger moving between those 2 chords, right? One finger. The other 2 are in common. It's only the bass note. Only the bass note that's moving. Now, in the case of the E minor, we can keep finger 2 down. And that's what we're learning to do. We're learning to look for guide fingers, common fingers, and pivot fingers, all of which we'll talk about. So then you can go through and play those chords. Think of a chord chart, and I think what we're going to do is save this next lesson for number 16.